Chaos in the streets of Chicago last night as protesters took aim at Chicago's mayor, Lori Lightfoot. Protesters rallied outside of her home, demanding the Chicago Police Department be defunded and rallying against President Trump's move to send federal agents to the crime-plagued city. Emily, murders in that city day after day, shootings day after day, and this crowd wants to defund the police.
They are acting on a fantasy, and it is an absolutely dangerous fantasy. And what's particularly dangerous about it this time around is that there seems to be serious momentum. You have this big demonstration outside the mayor's home. And if Mayor Lori Lightfoot is not an ally to your cause on the far left, maybe you have gone a little bit too far to the left. This would cost, if this proposal were seriously implemented, which it's basically impossible, but if it were seriously implemented, the lives that would be lost in Chicago, the businesses that would suffer because of this, where people have put their blood, sweat, and tears into for years, it's almost hard to comprehend the loss of life and safety, and all of these things if this fantasy were enacted. And so, but what's truly scary about it, I think, is when you see the momentum behind it this time around.
And by the way, one thing I just want to point out, and there's been certainly a back and forth between the mayor in Chicago and President Trump and federal agents coming into the city, but these agents are working in an investigative role, and it is perfectly within the purview and the power of the federal government to send agents into any city or state to investigate federal crimes. 80% of gang activity is drug activity. Guess what? Drug activity is a federal crime. If it's a racketeering organization or enterprise, anything that those organizations do, that is a federal crime. And if you read into the details, and certainly the people in the mob and other talking heads on TV don't do that, but if you read into what these agents are doing in Chicago, it is very interesting that they are using special technology, say from ATF, meant to study ballistics evidence to connect and solve shootings. Agents will bring cases in federal court where they can pursue longer sentences. What if this works, Emily? What if this works? That the federal agents working in connection with local authorities can stop some of these crimes and charge some of these murders?
Well, yeah, I think you raise a really good point, and the question is that do these protesters want that to happen? I mean, do they like, we've seen some of their proposals, for instance, as to how we should investigate rape if police were to be defunded, and it's stunning. It is stunning, and I can't imagine that people would actually genuinely want to live in that world. So I think you raise a really good point about stuff that could actually be helpful and could actually be useful in some of these cities where it's getting to a point, especially as we've seen these crimes during the pandemic spike, that they have to. I mean, this is dire in some of these cities, and to see people wanting to go in the opposite direction, it's really kind of mind-boggling, to be honest.
Emily, I think the American people do understand what's at stake, given this deadly virus that's killed hundreds of thousands of people around the globe, unleashed by China, lying to the world about the nature of the virus, and then two Chinese nationals try to hack into U.S. firms to steal coronavirus research. People very much understand what's at stake.
Well, I hope they do, and I think they'll understand even more in coming days as we learn additional information about why this decision to close the Houston consulate was made. I think China is engaging in some really nefarious stuff when they're on American turf, and I think the more we hear about that, the more I hope people understand, because the media is basically helping the CCP's propaganda game by saying, by downplaying American efforts or Republican efforts to tie the virus to China. And the American people need to know that the Chinese Communist Party, whether you're a Democrat or Republican in this country, the CCP does not have our interests at heart. They unleashed this virus in the world. They have concentration camps for religious minorities in their own country. They're up to no good. They're a force for evil in this world. And the more people know about that, the more I hope they realize, exactly why we have to take steps like this one.